If you want to get really dystopian, you might think that sounds horrible, but maybe that's the point. You create this stark and sterilized reality that relies on having augmented reality to be usable, to be functional, to be serviceable, to be enjoyable. And that just keeps you tied into this ecosystem because if you don't have your augmented reality, everything is just horrible.
Blank white.
Yeah, blank white.
Yeah, it's like,
And then they'll show you ads. Hello and welcome to Entropy Rising, where we talk about science and futurism. I'm your host, Jacob, and as always, I'm joined with my wonderful co-host, Lucas. Lucas, how are you doing today?
well, I'm doing wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah, happy to hear it.
How are you?
I'm good.
Good.
Starting to get cold and rainy. We have a huge hurricane coming in on the East Coast, so it's I'm good. The weather is not.
Yeah, I mean, beautiful weather. Beautiful weather.
Yeah. So today's episode is going to be all about augmented reality. And specifically, we're going to be talking about, of course, starting with the most prevalent version of this, something like augmented reality glasses, and then
Mhm.
diving into how that technology can advance and how it'll affect society.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be a very cool topic. I think that a lot of people are already thinking about augmented reality because, as Jake said, it is already introduced in a few different devices, and it's just really cool to speculate on how it will advance in the future.
Yeah, because this is, one of the areas that we're tackling that isn't far-fetched or tens of thousands of years in the future. We've talked about O'Neill cylinders, we've talked about Dyson swarms, and all of these fantastic ideas, and I do love talking about those ideas. But
Mhm.
augmented reality is essentially here. We have it in the form of mixed reality with something like an Oculus Quest device.
Yeah.
But we're also seeing smart glasses hitting the market that aren't quite at the augmented reality portion of it yet. They're essentially just a heads up display you wear on your face. But this technology really is right around the corner.
Yeah, I mean, well, really, when you think about what augmented reality is, it's just something that's changing the way that the actual environment around you is perceived.
Yeah, exactly. And and I forget it, there's all kinds of different ways you can break it down with like augmented reality, virtual reality, and then
Mhm.
there's something in between, which is more along the like XR, which is something like the heads up display glasses we have now. But yeah, you are right. When we're talking about augmented reality, like truly what that is isn't just having like a heads up display over it, but it's incorporating the digital world with the physical world.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this is something that we were always going to do. I mean, there's a reason that science fiction has been depicting this for decades now. And it's because if you look at the trend of our society over the past, I don't even know, 100 years, but
Mhm.
especially since we started the information age, maybe in the past 50 years, there has been this ever increasing trend of melding the digital and real world as much as possible.
Yeah, I mean, just like think about a day where you don't pick up and look at your phone,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Exactly.
Like it's crazy. Technology is just becoming such an important part of all of our lives, whether you say that you don't use social media or something. I can't imagine a person in my life right now who doesn't use technology at all.
Yeah, and we're definitely, and this is an area I want to explore as we talk about the effects of augmented reality on society, because I would say we're already at a point in our society where if you opt out of technology, in a lot of ways you're opting out of society. It's just very hard to function in our society as it is without technology. And I think that's just going to get worse as augmented reality starts to become more mainstream.
Yeah, and it'll just be continue to ostracize the people that don't use that technology moving forward.
Yeah, I think so. So before we dive into all the cultural aspects of it, I actually want to
Mhm.
take a moment and talk about the physical technology.
Okay.
So one of the things is, and this is something that I learned a couple of years ago when I started diving into AR glasses, and because I really wanted them, I'm a huge tech nerd. Of course, I wanted that. But one of the things I thought was interesting, I wanted to bring up, was that the reason this hasn't existed for a while and it's taking a while to catch on is because it's not as simple as just slapping a clear display in a pair of glasses and wearing it on your face. Your eyes are actually physically incapable of focusing on an object that's too close to your face. I don't know the exact minimal focal distance, but I do know that glasses are within that range.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. You put something up super close to your face, it's just a blur.
Yeah, and you just physically can't focus on it. So one of the biggest challenges in developing AR glasses or clear glasses you can wear on your face is that you need to have some type of display that can actually essentially make the image unfocused so that
Mhm.
when it hits your eye, it appears like it's coming from a further focal distance than it actually is. That way your eye can actually put the image together and you can see it as if it exists further away and it's within that focal distance. And that's been a real challenge because you can't do that with a traditional display. You need something a little more fancy than that.
Right.
And we've seen that with projectors. We've had projector-based systems. That was like the first attempt in some type of augmented reality glasses. But the cutting edge, the new technology right now, are these things called waveguides. and they're kind of insane. They're really cool. It's essentially, as far as I understand it, and optics is not my area of expertise, but from my understanding is it's essentially creating tons of different pathways through the lens where photons can be guided through the lens, basically sideways, and then redirected to your eye. And the advantage of doing this is that you can set these up in such a way where they basically come into your eye out of focus to appear like they're coming further away. And some of the really advanced ones, and these are not on the market, these are like prototypes in labs, but they can actually be varifocal. So you can have objects appearing like they are either closer or further away, but like for real. So most AVR systems can't do this right now. They have a fixed focal length, but this can physically make objects look like they're further away. And this is going to be a key technology into having a true augmented reality system where you're actually mixing our reality with these glasses and you're not just overlaying it like what we see with most technologies on the market now.
Yeah, I mean, that's insane to think about just because the applications of that can be so versatile once it's mastered, right? Right now, it's difficult because it's a new technology. It's probably what makes them very expensive as well. But as these companies continue to master that technology and implement that, they could have it be used for multiple different applications and be used on people that have, different, I don't want to say like stigmatisms, but they have variable eye issues.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's another use case for it as well. But also not just eye issues. We're definitely going to dive into how it'll affect culture. But one of the interesting marketing applications for these is helping people who are deaf, for example. I tried out the Meta View glasses, and one of the features they have is live transcriptions.
Right.
You just look at somebody and you can see a transcript pop out while they're talking. Super helpful for translations, but also helpful for people who might not have their hearing.
Yeah, that's actually pretty amazing to think of. But that's very simple. But that is still augmented reality.
It is. And that's just like the first level we're going to come into this. So it is quite interesting. And, I think this technology, when we're talking about the future, we can see this get really advanced. So, of course, right now, what we're seeing is glasses that you put on your face that will project an image over your reality. I think the next step of this we're going to see is we're actually going to see these projections starting to incorporate with our reality. So this can be things like, for example, you might be able to virtually overlay clothing on yourself. So maybe in addition to, your typical how you appear by the naked eye, you might throw off some like virtual effects to your person. It could be something like that. You could hang virtual artwork in your house, or you can make your world look any way you want it to look just through virtual aspects. And I think that's going to also change how we design our homes and everything like that. But again, I think the first step will be through glasses. If we start really going out, there's no reason that you can't just eventually get to the point where you're connecting technology straight into our brain. We talk about this with mind uploading all the time, but tapping into the visual cortex of your brain or into the optic nerve directly, you could essentially live in this virtual environment, fully have it be just your regular reality in the far future as this technology gets better.
I would even go as far to say that would be necessary if we were to bring augmented reality to the point that you're talking about, where we are taking the time to alter ourselves and the places that we live in to be so different from what they look like in real life that it would almost be jarring to walk into your home and take your glasses off.
Yeah.
Right. So you would almost want something that is just like that is your reality, just augmented, and you are none the wiser, but neither is your neighbor. Only the person who doesn't have the chip in their brain walks into your home and sees barren walls. Right. So I think that's a really cool idea and probably something that is essential in my mind.
And I see, and I know this it might sound a little dystopian, but there is a genuine advantage to that is good for society in my mind, which is that it could potentially reduce our resource usage. If you can rely on more virtual existence, that's a lot less energy intensive than a physical object. So if you're able to decorate your home with all these virtual components, then you're going to produce overall much less waste than going and buying Halloween decorations and then Christmas decorations and then Thanksgiving decorations just to throw them away and buy new ones next year.
Yeah.
So there is a real potential here to get to a more sustainable society through relying on things like augmented reality. And same thing with clothing and fashion and stuff like that.
It definitely opens up an area that I feel like could branch off in two ways. It could either be exploited, sort of like how NFTs are right now, or it could incite people to be more creative because you can design and put around your home whatever you want.
Yeah, exactly.
So it could go one of two ways, but I definitely like that more optimistic approach that it allows people to value, their own creation over paying for these expensive, valuable, and scarce items.
Of course, you can still have a market around these like any other digital marketplace. But yeah, I do think that is a real advantage and something that's, I feel like, often overlooked in this discussion is the ability to conserve on resources. You don't need as many physical items made, especially items that you don't actually interact with. They're just there for show. I
Yeah.
love those items. I decorate my home as well, but it'd be nice, especially for like seasonal decorations.
No, I mean it definitely would, and you could even like think of not just decorations for your home, but like vehicles, for example. People spend lots of money to have a car that looks a certain way. You could essentially just get a vehicle that looks plain and have it overlaid with how it looks, and you could drive a different car every day.
I'm just imagining that subscription service.
But it would be crazy, and of course people would still hike up the money, but it would be way cheaper than buying the brand new whatever car you want to drive that day.
Yeah, I mean, at that point, I guess you really would be focusing on comfort over looks because you can make it look however you want. And maybe, again, that can aid into helping reduce waste because if you're itching to have a different looking car, but your car still functions for your needs, you can completely redesign the looks of it as long as the physicality of it's still fine, it's still comfortable to drive and all that.
Mhm.
And that could be really helpful because especially as electric vehicles are entering the market and we get better with battery technology, we're probably going to see cars come onto the market that are going to last much, much, much longer. But people are still going to have that urge to follow trends and change things. So again, having this augmented layer of reality could really help meet those sustainability goals or to give us that ability to customize things without buying a new car every 5 years, which is the typical lifespan of a car in America. Despite most cars having a usable lifespan of between 9 and 14 years, most Americans buy new cars every 5 years because they just get bored of it.
Yeah. And that's just one more example of waste, right? And augmented reality isn't just like visual, it can be audio, especially if we have it in our brains. You could have that vehicle sound however you want. You could alter, the different scapes that you're living in. You could have your house play noises when you enter it. You could have paintings move and talk to you.
And that does bring me on to the second point of augmented reality. You are right, of course, you can play with other senses as well, but typically when we're thinking about it, we think of the visual sense because that's one of the hardest to master and that's one of the most immersive. But you said a key thing there with the paintings moving. Augmented reality not only gives us the ability to mimic the world we have now, but it allows this whole new layer of interaction that just isn't possible with current existence, right? For example, fashion can move on to not just be the clothing you're wearing, but digital effects that when someone else looks at you, they can see.
Mhm.
I used to be a big fan of Halo and they had like the armor effects, right? It'd be like little effects that floated around your character. Yeah, you could absolutely see that happening in the real world. You could have, like you said, moving paintings on the wall and stuff like that. So again, that's another huge advantage to me, at least, of augmented reality. At least on a surface layer, and this still I think is very surface layer, is just it can change how reality looks to you.
Yeah, I mean, it really does seem like amazing. Like I personally would love that. Now we'll get into the bad stuff that comes with that later, but just focusing on the good things, like that sounds so just insanely entertaining.
Yeah, it
right?
does.
to go through every day.
And before we dive into the bad things and also entertainment, because I think that's going to be a huge area for this as well,
Mhm.
something else that comes to my mind is I think some people listening to this might be aghast thinking, oh my God, you're going to be living in this plain, lifeless box and be relying on augmented reality glasses to make it look, comfortable and livable. But I actually think at least the first layer of augmented reality, when we get these glasses that can seamlessly overlay into our reality, one huge advantage of that is it's going to change how we design our homes. And for me, one of the biggest gripes I have with my living room and my bedroom even is we have these gigantic TVs, right? That just sit there most of the time. There's this giant black rectangle. And you have to design your entire house around this, these rooms at least around this.
Yeah.
With augmented reality, it could also give you the ability to get rid of the TV, to get rid of your desk setup and design your home the way you want and then overlay digital aspects of it when needed. You could design a living room around conversation knowing that at any point you can throw up a virtual TV and still have a functional multimedia room.
Yeah.
Same thing with the office setup. You don't need to have a desk set up with a bunch of monitors on it. As long as you have a comfortable place to sit and use some type of device like a mouse and keyboard, because I still think that'll be helpful, you can throw monitors up wherever you want.
Yeah, I mean, because when you're thinking of this, like this isn't virtual reality, right? Like this is still augmented. So you don't want to be, controlling everything in crazy ways. And you still want to be able to have that community when you're watching, your shows and stuff, because that's how, not in all cultures, but American culture has really fostered people gather around the TV in the living room, right? But if you can set your house up the way that you want and still have people come over and be able to conversate, but then everybody can sort of have a screen watching the same thing whenever they felt like, it just gives you a lot more freedom in that aspect. And that's a small aspect. Like think about all of the different ways that this could be used to conserve space, not just in your homes. Like think of all these billboards that are used for advertisements because you know they're going to be advertising on
Yes, advertisements.
like in your brain.
So I see we're at the bad part of this now. Yeah, advertisements.
No, I mean we don't have to jump into that yet, but it definitely is just something to think about. Like there is a lot of good in this technology, but with really, really powerful and technologies that really tend to take over an entire population, like we have with cell phones and social media, there of course will be bad.
Yes. So, and this is the part that I definitely wanted to talk about. I want to quickly say, obviously, I've made a whole point when we do the show. We don't do the show to predict the future. That's not the point of this. We speculate. Big difference. One of the things that we've seen, if you go back and look at ads 10, 20 years ago of like cell phones or just the internet in general, some use cases that now look super obvious looking back retrospectively, then people were oblivious to. If you watch an ad of like what the internet will be from, the 80s to 90s, it depicts this connection of human society where people will be more connected than ever, and it's going to be wonderful. And then, of course, social media came out, and then the smartphone came out, meaning that we can carry social media with us, and that has had not necessarily the effect on society that people expected. And I suspect there'll be similar use cases for augmented reality as well. There will be applications of this technology that will come out that looking forward is hard to see, but looking back is going to be like so obvious in retrospect, like, oh, wow, that's not good.
Yeah, a speculation of mine, and this is a crazy one, like is the popularity of living somebody else's life through their eyes.
Oh, I could absolutely see that. I mean, vlogs are already a very common thing. Casey Neistat's a huge one on YouTube, hugely successful doing vlogs. And imagine actually being able to live through their eyes.
Yes, because if it's hooked up like to your brain and you can see what they're uploading through that augmented world, you're seeing quite literally through their eyes. And then people could just fall like into that person, and that person could do dangerous things, or they're essentially living their life without any privacy. And that is a huge thing, like with social media already, is like people changing their lives to look the best way that they can. And that just causes, all of these problems with people that don't have that fame or aren't living lives like that right now.
Yeah. And that's something else that you brought up. One, the loss of privacy. That's obviously going to be a huge concern, especially if everyone's basically wearing a computer and cameras on their face. But you mentioned that a lot of that is a willing and optional loss of privacy. People willingly broadcast their life on social media, and I think a lot of times not considering the ramifications that's going to have on their life later on or the effects that could have. But I do agree. I think that's going to get even worse with augmented reality in general. I think social media in general is potentially going to get worse with augmented reality. And I suspect what we're going to see is the melding of social media and online media and just life. And especially once you're getting to the point of like implanted computer chips, which is more far-fetched, but even just glasses you wear on your face, if they become mainstream and you're wearing them on a regular basis, I think you're going to start to see social media and just regular real life become one. Right now, many people have two different personas, their online persona and their real persona. I think already we're starting to see those merge. People are toning down the social media side, or they're doing the opposite and they're trying to lie more on their real life side.
Yeah.
But there's still a distinction. Imagine when you are always wearing your glasses, I think it's going to average out and you're going to be a little less yourself, but also maybe a little less extreme on the online side and just reach one consistent persona that exists in both of these worlds.
Yeah. And when culture gets to that point, you're really just going to be like adopting this idea of this is like how it is and this is how culture is. Just like adopting all this technology and having this online availability just everywhere, that people who don't follow that, I feel like will be even more ostracized than they are now. So there will be very few of them, sort of like I think of like a nudist community as like how crazy people will think of like, oh my God.
or just, even now we see it. For example, if you don't have a cell phone and internet access, you are going to be hard pressed to find a job. Most jobs just take it for granted you have internet access. And if you don't, you're not going to be able to perform in that role.
Yeah. No, I mean that is a good point too. Like could you imagine not having an email address
Yeah,
and
exactly.
trying to make it in this world?
And so I think we're going to see that even more extreme with things like augmented reality.
Absolutely.
And of course, I was talking about the social media side of it, and this is an area where we need to be careful and
Mhm.
think there's already like warning signs for it. But there's that famous Black Mirror episode where it's essentially this world. People are wearing, I think it's like contacts in this, so it's augmented reality contacts. And every time you look at a person, you can see their more or less social credit
Oh yeah,
score,
there's stats.
and you can
Yeah.
like or dislike them in person. And that's what I was talking about with this melding of social media and real life. I suspect it won't get that extreme, and I really hope we don't let it get that extreme. But that is a possible future and a very dystopian one.
Well, I mean, just think about how horrifying cancel culture could be then.
Yeah.
You get canceled, and just like in the Black Mirror episode, like you can't rent a car, you get kicked out of your house.
I mean, yeah, that. But even if it doesn't affect the rest of your life, like you can still rent cars and all of that, even ignoring that,
Mhm.
just the fact that that every single person you're passing in the street knows who you are because when they look at you, that's going to pop up whether they know you or not.
Yeah.
At least right now, if something happens, people have to have seen a picture of you before. And when you're walking down the street, most people don't know who you are unless you're just insanely famous. But this would get rid of that. Everyone would see as they're walking by you. There's no such thing as a stranger. So it makes it 10 times worse, even ignoring the possibility of it being linked to things like credit or finance and job opportunity.
Yeah. I mean, it definitely would go in that direction. I feel like just because people already look for that nowadays without the glasses, but people still have all this fear of being judged and people knowing who they are and what they've done, especially, people who are very active within their communities. So when you're thinking of social media, if you're very active in that community, you'll want to know like those same things about people. And this just sort of gives you an easier access way to do that.
Yeah. It does make me wonder how this is actually going to work, especially early stages in terms of is it going to be like a social media site where you have to sign up for it, especially depending on where you live. Laws can vary on the ability of these glasses to, for example, scan someone's face as they walk by and pull up a social media profile.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, some places that would be allowed in public because at least in the United States, for the most part, you assume no privacy in public. So it's perfectly legal and allowed for someone to wear glasses, walk by on the street. Those glasses will scan your face and pull up a social media profile associated with your face. So I think we're going to see some interesting changes in law around that. And I'm wondering which way that'll go, whether that's just going to be accepted and normalized, or if the government and people are going to come down and say, absolutely not, you are not going to be wearing glasses that scan my face, and how that'll be enforced.
Yeah. I mean, well, personally, I feel like personal information being let out at that point, like to that extent, should never be allowed because that will really only lead to bad in my mind. But like, is it the government's place to do that, or is it up to the discretion of the people? Perhaps laws would have to be put in place, like you were saying, like through the government, but it would have to be the people who did it first, because the government would love to know more about you, right?
Yeah.
As far as like information goes, and companies definitely would like to know more about you as well. So it would have to come from a place of the people, being like, we don't want to share that privacy.
But it is interesting because we already see most social media websites already have this feature where when you upload a photo to it, they will scan your face and then associate it with other photos uploaded to them, whether you did it or not. And most cell phones now have this feature. I mean, if you open up the Photos app on your phone, you can tag your face and type it in, and it can do facial scanning and find every photo you were in. So I think this is just going to happen regardless.
I mean, that's definitely fair. It would be hard to just willingly embrace that you're giving up all privacy to log into essentially the second world of augmented reality.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it's going to be interesting to see how these systems work. And the issue is that I think, like I said, we have been trending toward more and more interconnectivity between the physical world and the digital world.
Mhm.
And it just seems like this is the next logical step are these augmented reality systems. And I don't think we're going to stop. I think it's coming. Whether you think it's a good idea or not, I think it's very obvious that this is going to happen.
Yeah. I mean, it's like you said, it's already here. It's sort of like how when the smartphone, you remember when it was like a 4-foot tall desk and the very first touchscreen was being made? Like it's in that stage right now, but it's going to advance really quick. And I mean, like Jake said, we're speculating about what's going to happen here, but it's probably going to come with a lot of good and a lot of bad.
Yeah. And I think, speaking of it, we're going to see some good on it too, as well as how it's going to change education. I do think the idea of education is going to change. I mean, it's already changing with AI. That's been a huge effect on education. But think about having an augmented reality system that's going to be coupled with AI, because of course it's going to be coupled with AI. These systems already are, where you can look at something and then AI can look at it, analyze your situation, and give you information relevant to what you're doing real time while you're doing it without you even having to ask for it. One example of this is something simple, but just looking at a math problem and the answer is already there floating right next to it. You write down 2 plus 2 and 4 pops up. Something as simple as that, where mental math is something you no longer have to think about doing because you have this visual processing computer on your face that's completing any equations it sees in real time in front of you.
Yeah.
Is one example.
I mean, that is a great example and an excellent tool. And we're already seeing it in colleges now. People are more studying how to prompt AI, and not in the US, but like in China, for example.
I mean, in the US, everyone's already studying that.
Right. But people are figuring out how to prompt AI and not really think for, I mean, they still can think for themselves, but we're going to get to a point to where we're kind of just living alongside AI as far as our thinking and, critical thinking and processing of our thoughts goes, which could be the logical next step. But that again is a very scary next step to take. Like imagine, your chip fries and now you don't know how to do math.
Yeah. No, I mean, having these basal level skills, of course, are still good.
Mm-hmm.
But I still just think, the same way that modern engineers don't know how to use a slide ruler, right? And that a lot of basic arithmetic skills are gone. Like most people, I don't even think they teach long division anymore. Or if they do, it's now just a quick oh, by the way, here's a thing. This is where it's coming from. Anyways, use a calculator.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas when I was in school, you had to learn how to use long division and calculators weren't allowed. I don't think I started using a calculator until 6th grade.
Yeah, well, I remember, you won't always have a calculator with you.
Yeah, then the smartphone came out. So imagine that on steroids, right? Like you have an AI connected augmented reality to your reality that is contextualizing everything you see and providing useful information. And I just wonder how that's going to change things. And my prediction is, one, memorization is just going to go the way of the dinosaurs. When you have access to the entire knowledge of humanity literally floating in front of your eyes, there's just not a need to really memorize things like we have had to do in the past. So I think that we're going to see a shift in education because of systems, not just AI, but especially AI coupled with something like augmented reality, where taking in this information and using your critical thinking to get a result is going to be the main goal.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with that. And adjacent to learning, right, and education, like training as well, right? You see already augmented reality is implicated within, military services that teach the best points to move and route. And I'm not super sure on all the specifics, but I know that they've been using that for a couple years already. And it has a lot of really cool features. Like it gives them maps and bird eye views of things. So it won't just be, used in education. This, like Jake is saying, will be a world-changing thing that is implemented into every part of human society.
Which, even thinking about it in a military sense, augmented reality doesn't just have to be throwing up a screen and watching TV wherever you want. It can be incorporating different wavelengths of light into your vision. I mean, if everyone has augmented reality and you're able to use thermal vision and IR light and all of that on a fly, that's really helpful. If you're able to see the view of a drone, because obviously we're seeing warfare changing and drones entering the battlefield. So being able to interact with those on a quicker level, and especially if we master the control of these augmented reality systems, there's the neural bracelet that Facebook's came out with and these types of systems. So it is going to be interesting to see how that gets molded together. And intelligence, real-time intelligence, especially on a battlefield, is huge. I mean, that's what makes or breaks a lot of interactions.
Yeah. And the last big thing, like we said before, was entertainment.
Yes.
Right? I feel like that's like the biggest area right now for these things is just to be entertaining, right? Augmented reality, we see it in like VR glasses. You can play ping pong with your friend if you're wearing the new Oculus headsets together. But entertainment's going to take, I feel like, a crazy shift because that'll probably be its most money-making market. So just thinking of like ways that you will entertain at parties and with friends and, in social structures will be entirely different. Like bars will have, they won't have pool tables or anything anymore. It'll be like just big open spaces where you can do whatever you want with your friends when you go out at that moment.
I guess if I have to think about it, my concern with augmented reality and entertainment, like you said, is all true. And I do think we're going to have those systems as well. And I mean, for me, I'm a big board game geek, so it would be nice to not have to as to have a closet full of board games to be able to just like have them on an augmented pair of glasses and I can throw anything on a table. That's all very nice. However, my concern is that what we have seen in terms of entertainment with especially cell phones is short form content that's designed to be as attention grabby as possible and just give you little hits of dopamine. And I'm concerned we're going to see that, basically go to its logical extreme with these augmented reality glasses. Our brains hate boredom. It feels bad. And it is something that our brain just tries to avoid as much as possible.
Yeah.
So if you have this system on your face, I mean, think about the little nudges that developers could give you to drive you into using some app or system that is literally always in your visual field.
Oh, dear God.
Coupling that with advertising, I mean, imagine, and again, I feel like we're talking about a lot of the dystopian use cases for it. I do like augmented reality, but coupling that concept with advertisement, that also scares me. Walking down a supermarket, and then out of the corner of your eyes, you see a little movement on a candy bar, and now you find that you're holding this candy bar because you were bored for half a second, and some app took your attention to drive you to a product. And once it's in your hand, the odds of you buying it goes up exponentially.
Dude, like you're walking by and the Snickers bar is just like, psst, hey.
Yep, exactly.
It just like wiggles at you.
And there you go.
Oh my God. It like that's horrifying, but it also is like, it is something that could happen. Oh my God. No, I don't want to think about the express brain rot that would be happening with that.
There's this really cool YouTube video, I think, and it basically shows this type of system where it's someone walking through a supermarket, and the premise of the video is that their augmented reality glasses are malfunctioning. And one of the interesting things you see is when they're looking at a product, the product physically switches between advertising for them and advertising for, I think the protagonist in this video is a woman. So it like switches the packaging based on them and then glitching out to show like the male version of it. And then eventually they take off the glasses and it's literally just a white package with QR codes on it. So it knows, the glasses knows what it is and where to map the advertisements to. That is obviously a very dystopian view of the future of all the shelves just being these white packages with barcodes and tracking nodes so that your glasses know what to overlay. But that is within the realm of possibility.
I mean, well, when you think about it, it's kind of what we've been talking about already, though. Like you walk into your blank white house and get into your blank white car, but for you, it's a beautifully decorated home and a really cool car. I mean, it just makes sense that advertisement would be adjacent to that.
If you want to get really dystopian, you might think that sounds horrible, but maybe that's the point. You create this stark and sterilized reality that relies on having augmented reality to be usable, to be functional, to be serviceable, to be enjoyable. And that just keeps you tied into this ecosystem, because if you don't have your augmented reality, everything is just horrible.
Blank white.
Yeah, blank white.
Yeah, it's like,
and then they'll show you ads.
It's like your life. You have the life version of Soylent.
Yeah,
like you are just how bland can it be?
Then you have to buy ad block for real life.
Oh my God, dude! Like imagine the hacking efforts that'll go into, like, I don't want ads in my brain. You got to pay the subscription. Oh, dude.
But then I'm wondering, right? Like, again, we're taking this to the logical extremes. Imagine a system where you have an augmented reality system, whether it's in your brain or glasses or whatever, and you can pay to literally block physical ads that exist in the real world. Instead of seeing an ugly billboard, it'll basically fill in the blank space, just how you can use AI right now to remove stuff from photos. What if you could remove billboards and advertisements from your real life? Of course, for a fee. I imagine there'll be a fee, or maybe buying the device is the fee. But I mean, that's a wonderful use case in my mind. Imagine being able to get rid of all the billboards you see driving down the highway and all the ugly advertisements that are everywhere. That could be a sales pitch.
It could be, yeah.
So it can work both ways.
It definitely can, right? And I think that with these, like how it was with the smartphone, I think that they'll be really good in the beginning, and then things will just slowly start getting a little bit more iffy.
Here's what I'm imagining, right? You buy the glasses, the premium tier will delete all of the advertisements out of your world. You'll never see another billboard.
Amazing.
The slightly less premium tier, we don't do that, but you still get some cool AR glasses. And then the free tier, we're going to make those billboards animated, and they're going to jump out at you, and they're going to like hold you hostage to buy the material.
They will advertise for us.
Yes.
For our partner companies.
I think a lot of the issues with augmented reality are the same issues we're seeing with the reality of the digital world in general. And hopefully that's something that we can move to address before we bring the augmented reality into our real reality. But unfortunately, I think this is going to happen either way. Whether you think it's a good idea or a bad idea, I think augmented reality is coming. We see these glasses around the corner. And so I think we've given some fairly like extreme and dystopian examples, especially around advertisement. But it is something to be thinking about.
Yeah, it definitely is. And like Jake said, we did focus a little bit more on the dystopian just because it's more fun. But there are a lot of really good real world applications for it as well that you have to keep in mind.
Helping people who've lost the hearing with real life transcription of what's happening is something that exists now, and it's amazing. Live transcription, being able to talk to anybody from any language. If you have a pair of glasses and I have a pair of glasses, we can communicate. That's huge. I mean, that is a hugely helpful piece of technology.
It is. Navigation is another big one.
Yeah.
Just think about getting around anywhere. I know a lot of people, they follow the augmented reality on their phone, like the arrows that show up on their screen while they're walking. That would just be a part of life. Like you wouldn't have to remember where to go anywhere. You just tell your glasses where you're going and they'll get you there.
Undoubtedly, these will be hugely advantageous with education, especially combined with something like AI to make real life dioramas of stuff, or to visualize concepts in front of you real time, or just to overlay what you're doing. Is working in engineering fields, imagine how helpful it'd be for, if you're walking by a giant chemical reactor and the glasses can highlight a defect you might not have even noticed.
Yeah.
Or maybe do a real-time overlay of, the stresses on a component so you know where to check. Or I'm thinking another example would be something like an aircraft mechanic. Right now they have to go through with a checklist. What if the glasses could physically make sure they looked at every single component they were supposed to look at, and it can verify with them, yes, this component is what it's supposed to be. It's the right thing. You're good to go.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely, it allows for laziness to not allow you to ignore the technology that's present to you. You will have almost like a virtual assistant there in every step of the way that leaves no room for error, which can be super useful. And all these jobs, especially where people's lives, depend on them, like engineers, electricians, people that are working on the things that are supporting human life, that we won't have robots doing yet.
Yeah. And also my own reason that I really wanted these and why I made this whole episode is because when I used to work in a lab, I would have killed for a pair of glasses to be able to throw up a YouTube video while I was doing my lab work, especially when I was doing really repetitive and monotonous things. Although that might have made me a worse employee. So again, maybe that's a downside of these systems.
Well, but now imagine you could have a YouTube video up while the glasses just gave you like some kind of input to where you knew what gestures to make. You didn't even know what you were doing.
Man,
you were just doing it.
If I could have glasses that would keep track of where I am in a 96 well plate, I think I could have gotten the university to buy those for me, because holy crap.
Dear God.
The amount of money I probably wasted messing up an assay because I lost track of what well I was in.
Yeah, I remember those days. Those were fun.
Yeah, but hey, you know what? Accidentally stumbled on another great use case, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Or your surgeon keeping track of where the surgical tools are so they don't accidentally sew you up with one inside.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So overall, what do you think? Augmented reality, I mean, I know you're looking forward to it.
I am. I am looking forward to it. I think that it will inevitably come with greed and bad things and control, but it is worth it in the end for our society to become more technology focused.
You actually do think it's worth it in the end?
I do.
Okay. I want it. I do. I think it's a very fascinating thing. I love technology, and I read all these science fiction books that have augmented reality just taken for granted. The Revelation Space series, the Culture series, all of them have some sort of augmented reality, and it's just a part of society. And that does excite me, and I do want it. I am concerned for the potential for it.
Mm-hmm.
We've seen how disruptive social media has been for society, and I think augmented reality is just going to be that on steroids. So yes, I want it. I hope it's a net good. I hope we address these issues before it happens. But I do think it's coming regardless.
Yeah, it's definitely coming regardless. And if the bad stuff happens, I will regret it. But I definitely think it's worth the try. And just have to have faith that humanity can maintain itself.
Yeah, I choose to be optimistic.
Mm-hmm. That's right. Me too.
With that, thank you so much for listening to our episode about augmented reality. This has been a bit of a departure from the space-based episodes that take place far in the future. But if that's what you like, don't worry, because next week we are diving into off-world living, why you would do it, if it's feasible, and overall what it would be like.
Yeah, that should be a fun episode. And we gave our opinions at the end of this episode on the topic that we talked about. Make sure that you guys let us know what you think, and if you think that augmented reality would be a good or a bad thing.
Yes. Thank you all for listening. Take care. Goodbye.
Thank you guys. Bye-bye.